Amber, how did you find carnivore?
So I found carnivore, I think a way a lot of people have, with the infamous statement, plants are trying to kill you. Anthony Chafee. um, I was looking, um, I was looking for some health advice. I kind of found it by accident. Um, I guess to start, I was feeling really tired. I was having a lot of pain, a lot of joint pain, headaches frequently. I'd struggled with those since about age 13. Um, and fatigue was just, it was becoming a serious problem. I work outside, I have a landscaping company, and I live in Florida. So it's very hot in the summer. And last summer, I was ready to sell my business. I was done. I couldn't take the heat. I was just flushing and exhausted, and um, I kept twisting my ankles, and I hurt my knees several times, and I was very disheartened because I love my job. Um, Not a lot of jobs allow you to listen to audiobooks and podcasts all day while you work. Mine does. So I wanted to keep my job, but I was struggling too. I was ready to sell it and look for something more sedentary. Um, and I really wasn't looking for a diet. I was actually thought that I was doing everything perfect as far as diets are concerned. I was buying organic everything. Um, I spent a large amount of my money on food, probably more than most people would consider legitimate expense. Um, I went to special grocery stores, go to, the fresh market and Sprouts and buy all the things that were supposed to be good for you, or I thought they were good for me. All the fruits, all the vegetables. If it wasn't organic, I wouldn't buy it. Um, I was convinced that that was the right thing to do, because I had spent a large portion of my younger life living recklessly. I abused my body. I did a lot of drinking, drugs, and all kinds of horrible things. And so I thought, well, I need to try to make up for that by eating as healthy as I can. And my job is physically demanding, so I felt like I was getting enough exercise. But it turned out that that really wasn't sufficient for exercise, but I didn't learn that until after I started the diet. um, but I saw Anthony Chafee. Then I saw Ken Berry and, a lot of the steak and butter gal, all the, the main influencers on YouTube. And it took a while to soak in, because I thought, well, yeah, I know meat is good for me. I loved meat, but I just wasn't buying into the idea that vegetables were really out to kill me. um, Took a minute. I started in February of this year. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do keto. I'm going to cut out all the bread, all the pasta, keep my carbs under 20 carbs a day, and see what happens. Um, and so I did that for a month. Um, I had the keto flu for the first few days, 3 days. And when I woke up on the fourth day, it happened really fast. I didn't eat a ton of carbs anyway, so I think that made my flu short lived. I woke up on day 4 and I got out of bed and I felt great for the first time in a long time. I didn't realize how bad I actually felt until I didn't feel that bad anymore. Um, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I had more energy. Um, I was able to work better, but I still had, the knee pain, the ankle pain, elbow pain, still had headaches frequently. I was getting headaches about every week, sometimes a couple times a week. I always thought, oh, I have allergies. Oh, I have, I work on my feet all the time. It's normal for things to hurt. But I kept listening to the podcasts, they kept coming up on my feed. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just give it a try. I'm already mostly there, right? Because 20 carbs a day isn't very much. So, so I cut it all the way out, and I just started eating the meat, um, and and dairy. I didn't cut out dairy. I still didn't cut out the dairy. I love dairy. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but um, so eggs and meat of all kinds. I started getting creative with the meat because it was a little boring, right? It's hard to eat just one big chunk of meat. So I would get like two or three different meats and prepare them and put them on my plate. Meanwhile, I'm cooking still for my family, all the other food. And very quickly, I realized that I didn't really want to eat that other stuff anymore. Um, it only took a few weeks of carnivore to where I was like, I'm making them broccoli and sweet potatoes and green beans and all these things. At first, I kind of lamented that I couldn't have any, but very quickly I was over it. I was like, yeah, I don't need those things. They don't really taste that great. um, but you get used to stuff and you think that's what you should have. But over the course of the next, I guess, maybe 2 months, maybe a month and a half, 2 months on carnivore, all the pain went away. Um, all the headaches were gone. The ankles, the knees, everything stopped hurting. Um, and so in March, um, at the end of March, so I had been on the carnivore diet for, I guess, about 3 weeks at that point. I decided to go and get labs. I wanted to see where my body was. I don't really go to the doctor. Um, so I decided to go with Function Health, and I went and got this big elaborate lab draw. So I get the results back, and the labs tell me that I have autoimmune issues and thyroid issues. My anti-nuclear antibodies were 1 over 160. Um, Normal range is anything under 1 over 40. So um, that was alarming. I never considered that an autoimmune issue might be the cause of my pain. I just assumed I'm like, I'm 44. Maybe things just hurt when you're 44, right? um, all the women in my family have thyroid issues, literally every single one of them. And so I wasn't surprised to see that. I thought that might have something to do with my fatigue, but my actual thyroid hormone levels were fine. What I did have, though, were thyroid antibodies, elevated. They were at 27, and normal is anything under 9. And so, left untreated, that would eventually result in thyroid damage, which would then lead to the same kind of thyroid problems that my family has. My sister has Hashimoto's. My aunt's thyroid is completely gone. She had to have it removed. My mom has Graves' disease. Um, so if I would have went on without doing anything, I'm sure at some point my thyroid hormone levels would have followed that same trajectory. So, so I was really glad that I did the labs, because then that gave me, I did it not too long into the diet, so it kind of gave me a benchmark of how to compare, see if the diet was actually doing something. I knew I felt better, but I wanted to see if the changes were real in my physiology. So I went, um, I just kept on with the eating of all the yummy meat. I eat tons of steak. I eat lamb chops. I eat fish, salmon, wild caught. Um, I eat sardines. I eat uh, no processed meat except for the occasional kielbasa. I get a raw kielbasa with no additives in it. And I can tell that my body doesn't like that as much as the other meat, but it's still really good. So sometimes I eat it. But I do, a main part of my diet has actually been heavy cream and butter. I eat a lot of butter. in the mornings, I kind of snack on it before my workout with my coffee, like little pieces of cold butter. And the heavy cream, I know this is probably not typical of carnivore. I hear a lot of carnivores say that they don't do much dairy. A lot of people that doesn't agree with them, and I totally understand that. But for me, I love it. I buy these these like pints of heavy cream and I drink the whole thing over the course of the day. So it's like 2,000 calories, 2,000 calories of heavy cream. Um, but um, I find that I put it in my coffee in the morning, and along with a little bit of I put some creatine and some collagen peptides in there. And because I work outside in the heat and I burn a ton of calories at my job, it's very heavy manual labor, a lot of up and down the ladder. Um, I trim and do all this hard labor. So the the calories that gives me energy. If I don't have the fat calories, I get tired. And so I just chug these bottles. I stick it in my cooler, drink it every day, and it works really well for me. I imagine for other people that aren't burning that many calories, that wouldn't work very well. but uh, but I like it a lot, and so I went at the let's see, it was August 12th, I think, to get the redraw on my labs, and my anti-nuclear antibodies came back 1/40. So it's right on the edge of being completely cured. Something that supposedly is impossible to do. You're not supposed to be able to cure autoimmune disorders. And the thyroid went from 27 to 18. So if I go down another 9 points over the course of the next few months, then I will be right on the edge of having cured that as well, which is also supposedly impossible. Um, and um, I mean, that's such an amazing encouragement to know. Um, and it's such a blessing. YouTube has been such a blessing, and people like you, and the doctors that come out and tell these stories about, hey, you can turn this around. That's a huge deal because even though I was stubborn, I never went to the doctor. I I knew that from experience with other people and family members that these things aren't supposed to be fixable. That you're supposed to suffer with these for the rest of your life and take medications that help the side effects. And then when you get really bad, it'll give you some immunosuppressants, and then you can catch the flu and die. But I didn't have to do any of those things. And so, what a blessing that has been.
Right.
And
Sorry, can I just jump in? I just wanted to
sure.
check where when you're getting these labs done, are you
Mhm.
just getting a report and you're
Yeah.
going off the report, or you're not seeing a doctor to interpret those results, or
No, no, I don't. The doctor that works, they have doctors that work for the company. The person that owns Function Health is actually Dr. Hyman. That's his he started Function Health. So there's a team of doctors that actually provide you with an interpretation of your results. So they don't diagnose you with anything because they can't do that really through the online, um, through the online app thing. But they do tell you what those numbers mean. So it doesn't tell me what kind of autoimmune disorder I have, but it tells you what the results mean, so I can see them. It gives you a couple options as to what those numbers could mean. In my case, based on the pattern and the way that there's a dye process they use to identify the antibodies, and based on the pattern that they presented, it was either lupus or Sjogren's that I would have been diagnosed with if I were to go to a specialist and have them actually do further testing. They could tell me exactly what it is. but I'm not going to do that because it's almost gone. So,
That's awesome that things are improving. It's one of these things where, you're not supposed to be able to cure it. We just go through life thinking, well, once you got this, you've got it forever, and something as simple as changing the way you eat can have such a massive impact.
it's a huge impact. And, I've had people ask me, well, you're not going to keep doing that, are you? Like, well, yes. Yes, I am. Why would I stop? I had been dealing with the pain in my ankles and my knees since I was 23. And I, it wasn't extreme pain, but it was gradually getting worse over time. And the weakness in my joints and my ankles, I had twisted my ankles so many times. And I had actually damaged my right ankle so much that the bone in the ankle on the inside was protruding out farther than it was supposed to be. And I never went to the doctor for that either because I don't like going to the doctor, but it hurt a lot, and it didn't move quite right. Um, and so I favored it, and I wore ankle supports and knee supports to work, and I was like wrapping everything up, and all that stopped. All the pain went away. I stopped using the supports. I started doing some exercises to help with the ankle and trying to kind of rearrange whatever I had damaged in there. And it's still not exactly normal, but it's way better than I ever thought it could be. It doesn't hurt at all. And, um, and now I lift weights. Um, I wouldn't have been able to do that before because the joint pain was too much. My elbows would hurt every time I picked up anything really heavy, and so I would wrap my elbows for work. But my husband loves to lift weights, and he's always like, babe, you should lift weights. It's good for you. It'll make you, you'll be able to do your job easier, and you'll feel better. I'm like, I can't. My joints hurt. I can't do it. Um, but when the joint pain went away, my excuse went away. And so I started, and that's been phenomenal. I would have never been able to do that if I hadn't changed the diet. I lift weights 4 or 5 times a week in the mornings, early in the morning before work, and I've just gotten so much stronger that my job is way easier than I ever thought it could be.
So,
I
that bears emphasizing, you've gone from having so much pain, and you've got a very active job, and you're doing weightlifting regularly in the morning before you go to work. I mean,
Yeah.
you can kind of understand why you're able to smash the cream every day, It's
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge difference. I went from peeling myself off the mattress in the morning and like slithering out to the kitchen to chug coffee and then begrudgingly going to work to popping up out of bed. Sometimes before my alarm goes off, often before my alarm goes off. I get up at 4, pop up out of bed, work out for an hour and a half, bebop around the house and have a great day and then drive to work. It's a complete different, it's a whole different life. And now I can keep my job. I don't know how long I can do that job physically, because I know eventually I will get too old to do the job, but I feel like I'm in my late 20s again. So I know that I'll be able to do this for quite some time because I do love my job. Um, it's just, it's a complete change. Food is medicine and plants are trying to kill you are two very true statements that I have learned. I did one day, I decided that I would have a bite of some vegetables just to see what happened. So this was, I think, in June. maybe towards the end of June. And we were doing, we were on cooking on the grill. We had the ribeyes happening, some pork chops happening. And I had put the cast iron baking sheet on the grill with some onions, bell peppers, and mushrooms for my husband and my daughter. And they were all caramelizing and smelling good. And I was like, you know what? I think I'll just have a little tiny bite. So I ate probably like a quarter cup, maybe even less, of some. I didn't eat the bell peppers, but I had some onions and some mushrooms. The next day was Saturday. We were going out to Silver Springs to paddleboard. We That's one of my daughter and I's favorite things to do. So we have the stand-up paddle boards. So we go out there early in the morning because that's when nobody's there. And uh, about 10 minutes in of standing up on the paddleboard and the familiar pain back in the knees and the ankles, my feet started going numb. And then after paddling for a little while, the pain in the elbows came back. And I was like, wow, that's just, you know, not even 12 hours or just a little over 12 hours later. It just wreaked havoc on my body. And I was like, yep, that's all the proof that I need. I shall have no more vegetables.
It's a good guardrail though, right? So it's like, "Okay, well, I know I'm not doing that again." And then if you
Yeah.
think in the future, you might think, "Okay, well, I might try and introduce this thing," and it's like your body's gonna react and tell you
Yeah.
yes or no, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's neat to be at a point where I can do that. Um, but I'm hesitant to do it because, yeah, that reaction was so. I guess I had gotten used to not having the pain. Before, I would kind of ignore it, but being without the pain for a while and then it being back all of a sudden, that was really, that was all I needed. I wasn't prepared to deal with that again. And I think when you have pain for years and years, your brain kind of gets used to it and you kind of learn to ignore it a little bit. And so but when it just popped back up out of nowhere, I was not ignoring it. It was very, very noticeable, and I wasn't prepared to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, and, the average person, they are so busy shoveling plants into their mouth, whether it's,
Mm.
just veggies or in the form of ultra-processed food, that they've got so much bad stuff going on in their body that they don't know that what they're feeling is not normal, and it's like, "Oh, I'm just getting old. There's a little bit of joint pain there or something," and it doesn't need to be this way.
No, it doesn't. I Where I work is in the villages here, so it's a retirement community, and so all of my customers, they're in their. I'd say most of them are in their 70s and 80s. Um, and even a couple in their 90s. And um, they a lot of them they tell me about their ailments sometimes. And since I started this diet, I'm like, well, you know what you can do. But they don't want to hear that nonsense. A lot of times people don't want to hear it. And so I don't be pushy about it. But I actually did have one customer that took me up on the bet. And he's been it'll be 2 months, a little over 2 months now since he started the carnivore. He wanted to lose some weight and he was having some joint pain and things. And so he lost 14 pounds, I think, for in like just the first couple few weeks. And then his weight loss stalled a little bit. And so we talked about that and I sent him some videos. And he told me, he says, it's not really easy to do. And he said, and I'm not losing any more weight right now, but I really feel good. And so it's like, okay, well, that's a good sign that you should keep going. He's like, yeah, I feel a lot better. So hopefully he sticks with it long enough to achieve his goals. But there's a lot of negative, there's stigma attached to the diet. Um, a lot of people are really, really ingrained with the idea that you have to have the plants. You have to have your fruits and vegetables. Oh, well, I need bananas for potassium, and I need, leafy green, all the things they think they need. My citrus for my vitamin C, and you just hear that repeated so much. And I tell my friends at church and stuff, I'm like, just look it up. There's more potassium in red meat than there is in a banana. It's just they tell you these things, but it's just not necessary. You can get all that stuff from the meat. And um, yeah, I have one friend from church. If you don't mind, I'll tell you one more small story.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I shared with a friend. She's she's in her mid 70s, I think. Yeah, early or mid 70s, and her doctor told her that she was um, diabetic. She had just crossed over into the threshold of being type 2 diabetic. And I was like, "Oh, my friend, you can reverse that. You can reverse that right now. Just, start this diet." And I sent her some stuff from Dr. Norwitz, Nick Norwitz. Have you ever heard of him? Yeah. And some stuff from Ken Berry. She started the diet. She was shedding weight just like my customer. And then she came to me a few weeks later after she had started losing all the weight and everything. And she goes, "Oh, she was just doing keto. She wasn't willing to do carnivore, but she was willing to try keto." She's like, "Oh, I had to stop doing the keto diet." And I said, "Oh my gosh, what happened? Why?" And she said, "My doctor said I'm too old to do keto." And I was like, "Okay." I didn't want to argue with her, of course, because that would be rude. And I'm not going to argue with her doctor because I'm not a doctor. But I asked Dr. Norwitz um, through his Substack. I said, "Hey, this is what my friend's doctor told her. Is there any legitimacy to that idea?" And he was like, "Absolutely not." And I'm like, "That's what I thought." And so, um, I've been debating on whether or not I should try to tell her. If I don't know what the right thing to do is, because I don't want to act like I know better than her doctor, but I want her to have the best information available. And so I just really hope that podcasts like this and the other people that are talking about this will start to reach the medical profession and start to reach people that don't realize that the narrative we have, as well intentioned as it may be, is just flawed. People aren't getting the information they need to get better, and the profit motive isn't there for dietary and lifestyle changes. The research isn't really there, because there's no one to fund that kind of stuff. And so, the best we have are these wonderful N=1 experiments that you're putting out and other people are putting out. And so I really hope that we see a shift and that people don't fall into that trap anymore.
Yeah. So, day to day, besides the butter and heavy cream, what is your eating like, and how many times are you eating?
So I get up in the morning. Um, I typically have 3 eggs, and I have the heavy cream that goes in my coffee. Then I do my workout. Um, on the way to work, I'll snack on some cheese. um, Pretty heavy on the dairy. And then I just take some meat with me to work. So lamb chops, lamb shoulder, leftover salmon fillets. Sometimes I'll eat cottage cheese. I know it's bad. It's not good advice for a lot of people, so this is not prescriptive. But dairy agrees really well with me, and so I do eat quite a bit of it. But um, and then for dinner, I usually eat ribeye. I love ribeye. Gotta have it. I never get tired of eating a ribeye. I do grass-fed, grass-finished ribeye steaks. Sometimes I'll do ground beef. Um, there's a brand that I get from the Sprouts Market that has liver and heart ground up in it. And I kind of like, I don't eat that all the time, but sometimes I kind of feel like I crave it a little bit. And so I'll make like a burger out of that, or I'll just, you know, just fry it up in crumbles and eat it with a spoon with butter in it. um, yeah, that's most of it. Sometimes I'll eat cod and sardines. I do eat seafood, shrimp occasionally. But I eat 3 times a day. I just burn mad calories, especially in the summertime. So I usually do a light breakfast and then a pretty decent lunch. I take the heavy cream with me to work and chug on that. Um, and then I eat, pretty good sized steak for dinner. Um, and that's pretty much all I eat. I have tried some sauerkraut, which I was able to eat without any side effects. And so every now and again, I'll get a little tiny thing of raw sauerkraut, but I try not to do that too often because I'm afraid of it.
So, what do you say to people who would comment, "Don't you get bored? Don't you need variety?"
Mm. I say that I eat to live, not live to eat. It does change your relationship with food, but I think that's something that we need. Um, our relationship with food, due to the processing and all the available carbs and just the toxic nature of a lot of our food, has made life revolve around it in a way that's unhealthy. I remember always worrying about what the next meal was going to be and trying to plan ahead for meals all the time and all these kind of things. And I'm glad that I don't think about it that much anymore. It's much more simple. I can't eat out often, um, but I don't really want to anymore because the food in the restaurants is doesn't meet the standard that I want for my food. I know that the little restaurant down the road here, um, they have salmon on the menu, but it's farmed salmon, and I don't want to eat that because it's full of mercury and poisoned feed they give the fish, and they dye it and all these silly things. So, um, when you look at food as medicine and as actual nourishment for your body instead of something that you do for pleasure, um, it's easy.
Yeah, we really need to get away from the idea of food being entertainment.
Yes.
There are no animals out there using food as entertainment. There's no giraffes or elephants going, "What am I gonna take to that dinner party on Saturday night?"
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's
There's no
only us
lion
that's
looking for a
confused.
side dish.
Right, right. Is that this wild boar really needs some garnish. Um, yeah, um, it's only us that's confused, and we really need to, as a general population, we really need to move away from this confusion. But unfortunately, that confusion is driven by the fact that it's much easier to extract dollar bills from our wallet.
That's very true. And you know, um, even taking that first step, I had already walked away from the processed food in the beginning. I was like, okay, I want to eat healthy. Even when you make that commitment to eat healthy, you're still uh, you're still a long way off from optimal. Um, there's a huge difference between not eating poison and eating the best diet you can eat. Because, like I said, when I was scrambling around thinking I was doing the best thing, going and buying all organic fruits and vegetables, trying to prepare them in the healthiest way, I got rid of all the high fructose corn syrup and, anything that might have glyphosate on it or, be overly processed. If I read the label and I couldn't buy one of the ingredients on the label in the grocery store, then I wouldn't buy that item. And I thought that was good enough. But it's not really. I don't think our bodies are designed to have access to all these kinds of foods that we eat all the time. Um, it's just not natural to always have access to these hybrid, uh, mutant fruits and vegetables that we've tinkered with and fertilized. And it's just not what our bodies need. And, some people can eat that stuff and they can be perfectly healthy, or at least they seem to be. But um, something I heard someone on your podcast quoting someone else. They said, what, I don't remember who it was that they were quoting, but they said, what is bad? Um, what was it? What is bad for the most sensitive of us is bad for everybody. Something like to that effect. And I think that's true. Just because your body is able to handle the toxins and the anti-nutrients and the poison, and it's able to clean it out, doesn't mean that it should have to do those things. If you want to feel your best, you can just not put those in there.
Right, and I think the proof is in the pudding, right? Not to talk about pudding, but the proof really is in the pudding. You feel better when you eat this way, and
Yeah.
that is kind of the strongest evidence really that it's good for you, right?
Yeah, and it's the strongest motivation because I have no desire to go back feeling tired and feeling incapable of performing my job and feeling pain. You know, I've had people ask me, "How can you do that?" And it's like nothing tastes better than being healthy feels, right? There's no amount of pleasure I'm going to get from a piece of sourdough that's gonna be better than feeling my best. And gosh, just what a blessing to wake up in the morning and feel good, to not be tired. That so many of us live with that feeling of impending doom when the alarm goes off in the morning, and it's like, oh my gosh, another day of just dragging through life. And to wake up and be like, all right, another day I get to live and feel good. Yeah, it's totally worth it.
It's pretty special, right? So, what do your family feel about this?
Oh my goodness. So my my grandma, um, my grandma she is something special. She is 93 and she is very ornery. And um she just uh she has her issues and with health and stuff, but she's a really tough. She grew up on a farm, um very different life than one that people live now. And so but she grew food. I remember as a kid, I lived there and we gardened. That was a large part of what we did. So the idea of not eating vegetables was just, that was heretical to her. And so she was like, "Oh, Amber, you can't do that. You're going to regret it." And she just kept hammering on me. I'm like, "Grandma, I feel great." I was like, I felt bad and now I feel great. And she's just convinced that I'm going to have a heart attack or you know, my cholesterol is going to go through the roof. My LDL only went up 2 points, by the way. So my HDL went up, so that was good. My triglycerides are like 23 or something, which is ridiculously low, and my LDL went to 112. So I don't think I'm going to have a heart attack. I think I'll be okay. And I told her that when I got my labs back, but she just shakes her head at me. My mom and my aunt, they try to be supportive. Um, they can tell that I feel and look better, so they don't really, they don't want to say anything bad about it because they see um, it's a huge difference. Last year at this time, um, I was in a rough shape, and not I wasn't super sick, but I was on my way, and it's actually a bit heavier. I've always been thin. Everyone in my family is really thin and tall. So I'm 5'11", and I had actually started to put on gradually a little bit of weight. I was starting to put on some fat, and at one point I weighed 187 pounds, and um, when I started the diet, I lost weight, and my family noticed that, that I had slimmed up a little bit. I have since put on a substantial amount of muscle, so now I still weigh 174 pounds, but it's not fat. it's uh, it's mostly muscle and probably a substantial amount of water. Because I do drink large amounts of water and electrolytes because I work outside. So, and but yeah, my husband is totally supportive of it. He doesn't do carnivore, but he does. When I'm cooking a lot of meat, he eats the meat. He does kind of a low carb thing. He doesn't really do keto. Um, but so I still, bring home nice, clean, organic vegetables for him, and he does well with them.
Right. Cool, yeah, so you bring home the clean ones, the least mutated ones you can find.
The best I can find.
Yeah. So if you were giving someone advice about starting carnivore, or they came to you for advice about starting carnivore, what kind of tips would you offer them?
Um, I think first of all, I would tell them to prepare for the first few days, especially if they're eating a lot of carbohydrates currently, because the keto flu thing is totally real. Um, get your electrolytes, get your water, and just be ready to feel rough for a little while. And then, to make sure that you give yourself some variety. Don't just like go buy 20 pounds of ribeye and just eat that. Some people have to do that because they're really ill, and that's all they can eat. But if they're just doing it because they want to feel better or lose some weight, or it's not like an emergency situation, then go get some pork and some beef and some lamb and some fish and some different things so that you're not trying to stuff yourself, and to make sure you eat fat. Um, a lot of people don't eat enough fat with the meat, and sometimes I think people do that because they think, oh, well, if I don't eat fat, then I'll burn the fat that's on my body. And that's true to some degree, but you don't want to starve yourself. You want to do it gradually. And so you need some fat to burn. Um, I think for some people, maybe doing an elimination style might be better. Maybe take things away a little bit at a time. That doesn't suit me very well. I'm kind of an all in type person, so I don't really do well with that. But I guess for some people, that's a better approach because they don't really like to change their routine very much. But yeah, I would just encourage people to make it through that first week or two, and really give it an honest go because you really do feel better after um, that initial bad bad moment. It was pretty bad the first 3 days, so yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So Amber, if people want to get in touch with you, do you have any social media or any other way of reaching out?
So you have that. It's just my amberpanuto@gmail.com.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll include your email in the show notes. Um, Amber, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.